I had a family friend come visit. Their nephew had played the shit out of Levelhead. He wanted to see kind of like how some stuff was made. And so I was showing him in my office all the stuff. And then he paused and he was like, wait, are you the presentation voice? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, can you say employee? And I was like, employee. He was like,
Butterscotch Shenanigans. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 531 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, the miscellaneous programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artist.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is July 25, 2025.
Yeah.
Before we get started, there's going to be profanity in this show, so be ready for that. We'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. So this week we've just been cruising on a whole bunch of tools on update 1.3 for Crashlands 2, but we've been moving fast enough and we're tired enough for making so many decisions, doing so many things that we're just not gonna talk about it this week. There's one thing I want to talk about though, which is Gimbal Cam.
Gimbal Cam.
Gimbal Cam.
What's a gimbal?
Right,
I don't even know what a gimbal is.
So we'll get there. All right. So I've been using a Razer Kiyo Pro webcam for video calls, remote work, blah blah blah. Something that we do a lot in the studio is we kind of just always hang out in video calls throughout the day.
Just we're on webcam for what? Minimum of 2 hours a day, usually 4.
At least, yeah. Like half the day at least. Just because it's kind of nice to just, see other people and just be able to just have little micro conversations about stuff, or just be like, hey, look at this thing. And then you can screen share, and it kind of recreates a bit of the in-office vibe.
Yeah,
whereas like
for context, I have a monitor that's off to my right side, whose only purpose is to have Discord up at all times with usually a full screen window of whoever is hanging out in the video chat at a time. So it's kind of like being in the office space with some people that I can kind of see in my peripheral vision, right?
Yeah. My second monitor is also my people monitor. That's where people are, that I can talk to. So the Razer Kiyo camera is pretty good. Like, it has kind of like a wide angle. So one of the problems we ran into early in our remote work was that a webcam has a specific field of view. And if you're talking to somebody and you're wanting to like make hand gestures and kind of like try to illustrate something through gesturing, then you've got to be like really keep an eye on where the camera is and maybe like get further away so that your hands can be seen. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that was kind of like step one, because my old webcam was real narrow and it just kind of sucked for that. Got the Razer Kiyo. It was great. It's a much wider lens, much better picture quality. Super good. So just been using that for a long time. But then this week, I think it was Adam, came across this.
Yeah, in one of the Discords I'm in, somebody came in. There's a gear channel where people are like, here's this cool thing that I bought. And everybody else is like, oh, no, I guess I have to buy it.
Now I have to buy that.
That was one of the things that got posted that nobody even had it. It was just somebody's colleague got it and was like really excited about it once they started using it. And then the person who was seeing that colleague on video was like, also that video does look really good. So I was like, hey, this might be good. This might be a good solution.
Yeah. So this is a webcam by Insta360, and it's called the Link 2, which branding wise, just real rough.
Yep.
Like the company name and the camera name don't really do much to sell it.
I didn't even realize the company was called Insta360. I just thought that whole thing was the name of the camera.
Yeah, the camera's called a Link 2, which is not really the name that I would consider to be a webcam name, but that's what it is. So this thing has a couple of cool features. So first of all, like, it's a 4K camera, so the picture quality is really good. But it has a gimbal, and gimbal is basically it's just a combination of servos that allow it to rotate in different dimensions. So it has two gimbals, so it can look around. And through the power of machine learning, it can tell where a person is, and it can just look at the person. So, with my Razer Kiyo webcam, I was always like having to turn it or adjust it or like make sure it's always pointing in the right direction. But this thing, like, it just looks at you. It just turns to look at you no matter where you are in the room.
We have messed around with some of those because I think even the Razor Keo comes with that. There's like some kind of algorithm in it that can essentially kind of constantly crop onto your face a bit, but it doesn't physically turn.
It doesn't
the camera.
turn.
It just
and the problem there too is
cropping to try to keep you in frame, right?
Yeah, and the problem with that is that requires it to narrow the field of view. So basically, what it does is it just moves the crop around within a box. So you can leave the field of view. So with this InstaLink or Insta360 Link 2, then so it has a little touch thing on it where like you can touch it to just toggle the tracking. So if you do want it to just point in a direction and not follow you around the room, you could do that. So already this is great because now I have much more mobility where like if I step away from the computer, then it moves up to look at me or whatever. Or if I go off to the side, something that I always had a problem with was whenever I'm thinking, I kind of like lean down. Like I kind of lean my elbows on my desk and I kind of like have my
I feel like
chin
a
in
lot
my
of our
head.
brainstorming sessions are either one of us like forehead down or reclined fully back with arms behind your head while you're trying to figure out something. You know what I mean? So
Whenever we're in a real design discussion, Sam and I are both not in the frame. Like Sam's looking at the top of my head and I'm looking at him like way down in the bottom right corner of the screen. So with this, it's like we could still see each other because the camera turns to look at you. So it actually makes your space feel a lot bigger because you can actually move around in your space without feeling like you're fucking up the webcam. But the other thing, which is this is something that I've been trying to find a solution for forever, which is the whiteboarding problem. I've probably talked about this on the podcast.
We've done a few. We've had a few different solutions to it over the years.
So I've gotten like tablets and things to try to do like collaborative whiteboarding,
Tools
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Tools, yeah.
It's one of those categories of thing where like the digital options just pale in comparison to just going up to a fucking whiteboard, grabbing a marker, and just drawing stuff. Like
well, not like that, but like I want to be able to get up away from the computer when I'm whiteboarding. Like I don't want to have to just be still just parked here. I feel like there's something about not having a bunch of Chrome tabs and being able to stand and just be at the whiteboard. So this new webcam has various like AI shit in it that it can also detect gestures. And so it comes with these little stickers that look like they're just black squares with white sort of L shapes in them to represent basically corners. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you put those on the four corners of your whiteboard, and then in the camera, you just make a peace sign with your hands. And then the camera's like, oh, that means it's time to go into whiteboard mode. And it'll look around the room for where you've put those four corners. And then it points right at the whiteboard. And then it sort of like perspective adjusts and full screens the whiteboard. So the whiteboard takes up the entire view and is like in focus.
Yeah, which is amazing because it's like, I'm sure people play with those, scanning app on your phone or whatever else or even if you deposit a check, right? It's like you take a picture of this thing, but there's always some kind of perspective warp because of the angle you're at. And then the computer applies a little bit of visual transformation to it to get it to work. And it's really cool because we got this all set up yesterday and then tried it out. It is just funny. It like looks over. It just kind of started looking around, found the corners, and then it was just like thunk. And
then it freezes for a second. And then all of a sudden, it's just
a whiteboard.
Yeah.
This is so cool.
Yeah. So I'm super pumped about this because it's like, and the thing is, it's still not perfect because what that means is like the person on the other side can now see the whiteboard, but they can't really see me that well now because, it's looking at the whiteboard.
They can see whatever parts of you are in front of, like exactly in front of the whiteboard. That's it.
So we'll kind of see how nice that is to use, but at least it's like, it solves a bunch of the annoyances and problems that a typical webcam would have. And the last thing is like it's a $200 webcam, which is like on the upper end. But for like all the shit that it's doing, it seems like it should be a lot.
Yeah, it's on the upper end of webcams that just do a
that just
job,
have good picture quality, basically. Yeah.
But it's on the lower end of a good camera. It's on the way low end of a good camera. Cause like a lot of people, people do like professional video recording in any kind of fashion at all, get like DSLRs and like I have a huge fucking setup to
they got a tripod and they got,
and at that point you're spending $600 on a camera minimum. And then all the accoutrement to go with it. Yeah. But for this thing, like $200.
I was actually surprised because I'm pretty sure the Razer Kiyo was about that much when we got them.
I think because I have a Logitech C920, I think is what it is, which is also like I've got no complaints. Works really well. I wish it was better in low light, but it's not terrible. But yeah, that thing too, I think was around 200 when I got it.
I was actually surprised because
decent webcams are like $150 at least. You know.
Yeah, Adam posted this and then described like some of the stuff it did. I went and looked at the product page, like their website, and saw all the stuff, and I was like, "Oh, sick!" And then in my mind, I was like, "It's got to be like $600." Like just mentally, I was like,
"Yeah,
it would be." And then they were like, "200." I was like, "What? How?" I'm confused. So
and they have a $150 version that doesn't have the gimbals, but has all the other features in it. I think. So
but at that point, it's like the gimbals. That's what makes it fucking cool, you know. Because without that, you can have the whiteboard mode, but if your whiteboard isn't always in frame and it doesn't have the gimbals, then it can't find your whiteboard. It can't do it. Right. So it
is the coolest feature. You know what I mean? It's like,
if you get the thing, and also it feels like there's a Star Wars droid just sitting on top of your computer looking at you because as you move around, it just turns and looks at you, you know? And then also there's this thing where when your video turns off, then it there's a little green circle light on it. So that light turns off and then it just like looks straight down. Like it's going to sleep. Just like turns.
Nice. Which actually, that's fun too, because there's a whole like privacy problem with webcams, which is that they, in general, like in theory at least, any webcam,
they're always pointed right at you.
They're always pointed right at you. And in theory, their light should be on if they're recording, but also in theory, any given camera, maybe somebody could find a way to not have that turn on when they hack it, right? So that's why I like my camera has a little flip down privacy thing on it that just goes over the lens. Yeah. But I like the idea of it being a robot that's just like, I'm looking away now. Right?
I'm just going to look. I'm going to look straight down. I'm not even looking.
Can you tell? Is there a hand gesture to tell it to do that? So you could just be like,
I bet there is.
Like if you like put your hands over your eyes, is it like okay, and then just like
no, I don't think so. I looked through all the settings. Yeah, I mean, like if you don't, because really, like that's just what it does when there's no software accessing the camera.
Yeah,
right. So like
that'd be spooky if you're just sitting there and then it like
and then it just looks at you. You're like, wait a minute, but you would know, right? Because like with my Razer Kiyo, there's no indication that it's being used. It's just something's recording, right? That's funny. With this one, you can tell. So yeah, if it suddenly flips up, it starts glowing green. You're like, oh shit. So I mean, so I've only been using it for like a day and a half, but so far pretty fucking cool.
So typically the way we do these is like one of us will get excited about them and get it and try it. And then the rest of us usually try to wait like at least like 2 or 3 weeks. Cause a lot of there's the excitement about like the problems it solves, but there is always still the remaining question about like, does it really
make solve those problems?
Use it in a practical way? Yeah. Or do you end up just being like, fuck this and like turning off the gimbal most of the time because it's like annoying for some reason that you can't foresee because you usually don't have that capability. So I'm waiting to see what the deal is, but
my only annoyance has actually so far been kind of the opposite, which is that it can toggle between tracking mode and non-tracking mode, but there's no visual indicator of whether it's actually in those modes. And so the only way you can tell that it's not tracking you is that when at some point you're just out of frame. Right. And there's some things that I'm still trying to figure out the triggers, but like there are some times where maybe I think it's like if I leave the room and I come, then it loses me. So it just goes out of tracking mode. And then when I come back, it's just not tracking anymore.
Like I said, it doesn't just keep looking for you basically once it loses.
Yeah. So, but you can do a hand gesture, which is basically like you just hold your palm up and then that just turns on tracking mode, which I was laughing because as we were about to start the podcast episode, we do our claps, which is me holding up. And so it turned off the tracking when I held up my hand to clap. But you can also disable whether it uses those gestures or not. Cause it also has like a little touch button that you can just touch to toggle between,
so it's all these little things where it's like, does it end up actually improving your life, or are you met with some other host of annoyances now that like make it kind of
that now you got to manage this new thing?
Exactly.
You know? It sounds. I mean, so far it sounds pretty well designed. So I'm waiting for probably about a week to hear how it goes, and then I'll. So the other thing that I'm really interested in is just something that behaves well in low light because I want to. I want to have decent recording, because every once in a while I gotta make a video for some reason for the studio, and it's not that often. So I don't want to like go all in on video. So I don't want to get a rig. I don't want to spend $500 on lighting. Like I don't want to do any of that. So if I can just get a webcam that's like, yeah, it does a pretty dang good job in low light conditions, then that would even that, like the rest of it aside, like if something like that, because that's so far I haven't found a webcam where I'm like, hell yeah, that thing like has great picture quality even without like a professional lighting setup. And this one seems to do a really good job.
Seems to, yeah.
We do have we're doing the GMTK Jam next week. That's next week. So might we get to try out that whiteboarding nonsense.
Oh yeah.
For that.
So we'll see how it goes. And we'll probably report back on the next episode after having used it for a week. All these different features, but so far I'm pretty stoked, and it feels very futuristic. Because that's also kind of the big thing. It's just like having this thing just looking around. It's very cool. So anyways, I think otherwise we'll just get into some questions from our listeners. So let's do that. Let's do it. Highest upvoted question from podcast.bscotch.net comes from Coobra Nookrag, who says, I know you stated somewhere that Levelhead was used to teach you more about game development in preparations for Crashlands 2. But how much of Crashlands 2 lore was storyboarded and built upon the snippets that were established in Levelhead?
I guess basically it's like we had a bunch of stuff early on, a bunch of open questions when we were getting Crashlands 2 kind of design-wise off the ground, which were largely oriented around like, does the Bureau of Shipping derp packages to Wone Up on accident? Like, do they occasionally appear there because of like, all the weird stuff? Are we derping people there? Because originally Crashlands 2 was one of the early kind of wishes for it was some kind of multiplayer aspect.
Oh yeah, for the record, derp is the Levelhead term for dispatch via intergalactic railgun power. So
basically you just shoot a package at like light speed to a target on any planet you want, right? It's a deal. It's like
the joke and and like lore wise, we didn't pull like a ton of stuff from Levelhead into Crashlands 2, other than just kind of like the vibe of like Levelhead was really pushing into the vibe of the Bureau of Shipping being like a parody of a corporate entity, because like in Crashlands, we had stuff about how like the like Brad and Will got contracted to go pick up the package but just leave Flux and Juicebox behind because corporate policy is all about package delivery and has nothing to say about the well-being of the employees, right? And so we leaned into that way more in Levelhead, and then even more in Crashlands 2.
Yeah, I think it's more so, it's basically the overall vibe of the Bureau of Shipping really came together, I think, in Levelhead as this essentially futuristic, like turbo corporation, Amazon
super sociopathic, thing. Profit maximizing entity.
Yeah, that's just like completely
inspired a lot by, what's that company in Better Off Ted? Viridian Dynamics.
Dynamics, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of references during Levelhead. So like, I think it's basically that backgrounding is kind of more so the pieces that came in than and that, I mean, the things like that background does end up applying to what happens in Crashlands 2, the whole story, and then kind of how things go off the rails there. And so it's all baked in, but not in a super direct. There's not like GR18s, that we pulled forward or anything like that. It's basically just that the overall company ethos really developed a lot in the case of Levelhead, because it was taking place, like in the facilities basically that the company has for a direct company purpose, as opposed to being like a person, employee just delivering packages. I did have a funny thing where I had a family friend come visit. Their nephew had played the shit out of Levelhead. He wanted to see kind of like how some stuff was made. And so I was showing him in my office all the stuff. And then he paused and he was like, wait, are you the presentation voice? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, can you say employee? And I was like, employee. He was like, so yeah, a lot of that vibe we just developed during that time, and I think it carried forward into Crashlands 2.
Yeah, and we had this kind of like idea that started in Levelhead, and then we kind of leaned into it more in like the opening cutscene of Crashlands 2, which is that in the original Crashlands, basically, Flux gets stranded on Wonope and is determined to complete this package delivery, ends up saving the planet. And then sticking around for a while. And then ultimately the Bureau kind of coaxes Flux and Juicebox back on like a intergalactic press tour as like the hero of Wonope, where they kind of like used what Flux did and kind of like over time started taking credit for it and like integrating Flux's story into like the mythos of their brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can see that in Levelhead, like in the dorm room on the far left side, there's a almost Rosie the Riveter style image of Flux flexing. And it's like, we can deliver it. Cause like Flux delivered these packages despite like world ending stakes, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then also that like the Bureau took the imagery of the tree of Marla and like used that as one of the backgrounds in their little level capsules that you can build levels around. So like they kind of took like stuff from the story of Flux as like corporate imagery that they could then like use in their training programs and stuff like that. So there's just like a ton of these sorts of little, it's less explicit in Levelhead because Levelhead isn't so story oriented. It's more like backstory.
Yeah. It's basically just lore.
You know?
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's all background.
Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of as far as we took it. But yeah, oftentimes we try not to pin down lore super hard if we don't have to, because then that gives us more room to kind of just like mess around later on. So Levelhead was kind of like that. Next question comes from Jumpylumpa Leapylow, aka Degeki, who says, you've talked about keyboards before, but what about mice? Favorite functions, shapes, styles? Back on keyboards, have you ever thought about designing your own keyboard or working with a designer to implement your favorite features, structure, and styles? 3D printing might be a viable, affordable option.
I have
all right, let's break this apart. Let's talk about
Mice
first.
So I have
Adam. Okay, Sam.
I was gonna say I have run the gamut on mice at this point.
Yeah, you've gotten real weird about it.
I've gotten real weird, and the reason is very specific, which is when you're doing art. This is a tremendous problem. When you're doing digital art, you kind of have two routes to go, right? One is to get something like called a Cintiq or one of these drawable tablets. There's other ones now, but like it's a drawable monitor where it's a full giant monitor. You draw directly on it. It's essentially,
you're
it's just
simulating
like
the physical process of
exactly drawing on paper, whatever else. I worked with one of those for a couple of years at the start of Crashlands 2. And then one of the immediate problems that came up there was that it's on a big arm, right? It's on a big mechanical arm that you can move around on your desk, because the issue is that like you need to have that thing very close to you while you're drawing, right? That's the whole point. And
then, it can't be where a monitor normally is.
Exactly, because you're not going to like lean over like you're, I don't know, writing on a chalkboard or something for 8 hours a day. So you pull it close to you, you do your drawing and stuff. And the issue is when something is close to you like that and that big, it completely obfuscates what's below it, which is going to be your keyboard and your mouse. At that point, like mouse height becomes a big thing. Like keyboard positioning becomes a big thing because you're basically flying blind then, like sort of underneath the monitor.
Yeah, you're tucking your hands under the Cintiq to try to
you're
type.
typing and shit. And so I was on Cintiq for a while, and then about 2 years ago transitioned to a Zenz Labs graphics tablet, which is just it's just a slate. There's no image on it, and you just draw it. It references the screen position, and so it's like a mouse.
So with that, you can sit in a normal computer seated position, still be looking at your monitor like normal, and you're just drawing on your desk.
Yes,
basically.
But you still have the same problem, which is that now you have this. Ideally it's large, so you can make larger movements with it. So I think it's not that big, but it's like 14 inches across, diagonal, or 15 or something like that. So you get this
needs to be in a comfortable spot, which is also where your mouse would go.
Exactly.
And where the right side of your keyboard would be, roughly.
Yes. So to say that I've dabbled then in like hardware configurations for mouse in particular would be an understatement, because I've done vertical mouse for a while. The issue I had with that was basically, you go get your hand off the mouse to type something.
Yeah, you just slap them over.
Go grab the mouse, you just slap that shit across the table. So that happened too many times. Tried a vertical trackball mouse, because I was like, this one's just stationary. So it can be like, I could just stick it to the fucking table if I wanted to.
So if I slap it, it'll just have to sit there and take it.
Exactly. Right? And then you can, or with that one, I was like, I can just move this. So I can put this, I've broken in half keyboard. I can put this vertical trackball mouse in between two halves of a keyboard, right? So that then I don't have this dominant hand problem of like where I want to draw is also where the mouse needs to be.
Because you've got a split keyboard.
Exactly. The mouse is now like between the splits, smack in the middle, and then my right hand is just doing drawing stuff. So that kind of works. But the issue I've had with trackballs is that when you're trying to use them in especially if you're doing animation, drawing, whatever else, all of the shit you need to click on is tiny. Okay.
Yeah, there's not very precise.
Yeah, and there's not hotkeys for like selection of certain kinds of things in all these programs, and so you spend a lot of time. Like you get 99% of the way to like a button, and then you gotta like really fucking dial it in to get that last little. It's just very fucking annoying. And so I used one of those for a while, came off that, and then tried this thing called a Cursor Red, I think it was called. And it's a wheel mouse. It's a roller mouse.
It's basically it's a bar. So if you think about like a dowel, like a bar.
Yes, literally a bar.
A cylinder. And then it has like a sheath around it. Mm-hmm. And then you slide the sheath left or right on this bar to move the mouse horizontally. And then you spin the sheath forward or backwards around the bar, around the rod.
Click? Do you just like push it the whole thing down?
You can push it down, or there's actual little buttons on like a pad right below that.
Yeah, when you showed me this, like you told me about this thing, and I just could not like visualize like what the fuck are you talking about?
You got to go just look it up.
And I finally saw it in your house, and I was just like, oh, what? Okay, like yeah, I get it. I mean, I can see it's got the 2 dimensions of movement.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's just surprising,
Yeah, and honestly, I really enjoyed that thing actually quite a bit. It has the same problem as a trackball, but not quite to the same degree because you do have a bit more to work with in terms of like how you're just like that hand mouse
the precision problem.
The precision problem. Yeah. It does have that a bit. It does. It's like all these things that are not mice always have a bit more of a disconnect between like precision where you're trying to go and where it's at. I think it's way better than trackball. So I did enjoy that one actually quite a bit.
They are really expensive though, because I think there's only one company that makes anything like it, and they're like,
I think it's like $200 or something.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Like for a mouse, for a pointer device,
it feels the same. So did that one for a bit, but similarly, it's like at some point when you're doing again animation, you're doing with like 1,000 keyframes in one of these like bosses or something we're working on. You just got to click on a specific spot. There's all this precision work that has to be done with the mouse specifically, and it's just too fucking annoying to have to deal with that. So I went back to trackballs for a bit, did a couple different other variants of that, trying to find one. But ended up currently I just have like a regular fucking mouse now that's just positionally, it is just positioned between my 2 splits of my keyboard while I'm working.
So it's in the middle of your desk, basically.
It's basically in the middle of my desk. And the thing is like the right-hand side of my keyboard is half unused, where it's like, because all of my key bounds are on the left half of a board. And so the right one, actually, it's not like keyboard, mouse in the middle, and then another keyboard. It's like keyboard, mouse next to that. And then the right half of the keyboard is like sideways. It's at like a 45-degree angle, and it's like up and right. It's like diagonally up. Yeah. So I actually have like some interior space to work with that mouse.
Well, I've always noticed that even when you had a regular keyboard, your keyboard was always at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, it was type.
It's like oriented so that like the right side of the keyboard is much further away from your body than the left side.
Yeah, I think it's because of that decision early on when we were working on Inkscape, and I was doing all the hotkeying stuff there to load the left hand with all of the hotkeys. Just kind of made it so I just needed to be able to situate it better and not have my right hand be so damn far away. Because if you have to put your hand at the very end of the keyboard, it's just over there.
It's for ergonomics. It's about like trying to make it so that the stuff that you're doing the most often is close to the center of your body, because that's where it's actually comfortable to be doing stuff, right? So so in your case, like what you're doing the most with your right hand is using a pen on a tablet thing, right? And so that needs to be as close to your body center, or at least your right shoulder, right, as possible. And so everything else has to try to be configured around making that feasible, right? And for me, for programming, it's a similar deal, except it's how do I use the mouse as little as possible? It's kind of like, it's almost the opposite problem, right? And so it's about making sure that the keyboard, like the whole keyboard, is as comfortable as possibly sitting on, and that I can have strategies to minimize use of the mouse. But when I do need to use it, make sure that reaching over there from the keyboard, because when you're coding, especially when you're coding in a lot of projects and stuff, you do have a lot of mouse movement of trying to like,
you got to pick it up and navigate around.
And so that's I'm not talking about keyboards yet, but related to mouse, as I have a 10 keyless keyboard, removing that whole 6 inches of space that normally goes to the 10 keys, or whatever you call the numpad part of a keyboard.
The numpad.
But yeah, so a keyboard doesn't have this called 10 keyless, right? So, but that's just hacked off. So I don't have that bit, so that's where my mouse goes, because that gives me a whole, whatever it is, like 4 inches probably closer to my center line by not having that. And yeah, it makes typing numbers a little more of a pain in the ass, except whatever. You don't need numbers that often in programming, at least for web programming, right? I mean, you do a lot, to be fair, but most of what you're typing is words. It's mostly, text, right? And so then, it's But yeah, all of us are trying to solve the same problem is like for what our hands need to be doing most of the time, but also what they need to be doing a substantial amount of the time, even if it's not most of the time, which can be really incompatible things. How do we configure the space and get hardware that allows us to basically minimize the ergonomic pain of dealing with the various kinds of inputs that we need to make?
Yeah. So my mouse situation is I love the Logitech G600 mouse.
That's what I have.
I've basically cycled through different like MMO mice. An MMO mouse is one that typically has a lot of buttons.
Hotkeys, baby.
Yeah. So this one has 12 buttons on the left side so that your right thumb is just seated on this kind of like, it's almost like a mini numpad kind of a thing. But they're all customizable, so you can like reprogram those buttons to kind of do whatever. So I've got them for like toggling my Discord mute, so I can just like tap a button on my mouse and just toggle my microphone. But mostly it's for gaming because I play World of Warcraft and I need about 75 keybinds, and so a lot of them are on my mouse. But it's a nice tall fat mouse. I've tried to use stuff like the Razer Naga mouse. And that thing is just an ergonomics nightmare for me because it's like, it's flat and weird and it kind of like has a concave like bend to it and shit. Yep. This one's just like a fat ball that you just it just fits perfectly on my hand.
Yeah, it is what I'm using. Though I will say the software for it just seems very spotty.
It's bad.
It's bad. They're like flash the firmware or flash your like stuff so it's in the memory on the mouse so you don't have to boot up the program.
That doesn't work.
Cool. It doesn't work ever.
Doesn't work.
So like there's all these things there too. And then like with the tablet, I know a lot of artists, you try to use your tablet as like your cursor surface basically instead of a mouse, right? But there's like so many weird things about clicking in different programs with a stylus where it like some programs just don't like stylus inputs. You have to use like Windows Ink or not, depending on some program. There's like all these things that make it so that again, it's kind of like
it's not pretending to be a mouse, right? Like it's its own kind of input.
Yeah, and so you can
sometimes.
So you can just find it where it's like if you want to right click with it, you gotta get the thing close to the surface but not touching, and then press a button and then touch. There's all these weird things that make it just
from a programming perspective, a stylus has it's like the condo of mice, right? Where like a condo has like some of the benefits of home ownership, but also all the drawbacks of being in an apartment. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's like you own what's inside, but not what's outside, and you still got shared walls or whatever, right? So with a stylus, it's kind of like some of the benefits of a touch screen.
Yes.
And some of the use cases of a mouse, but with all the drawbacks of both. Because like whenever I'm trying to program game stuff, so people have asked like, how come our Steam Deck stuff in Crashlands 2 doesn't have like keyboard mouse control, gamepad control, or just straight up touchscreen control? And we kind of talked about this in the past, how like there's a lot of overlap between how a mouse behaves and how a touchscreen behaves. But with a stylus, it's like a touchscreen in the sense that you can't always tell where it is because when it's away from the screen, there's no cursor. Like we don't know, it's just floating in space. So you can only really tell what it's doing like when it's touching the screen, but also it has buttons on it like a mouse. And so if somebody clicks those like side buttons or whatever, but they aren't holding it close to the screen, you can't like, you don't know that, or you can't tell what the fuck to do. So
there's like
it's
this
just a nightmare.
Like inch-ish range off of the tablet where you basically have the pen located so you can press buttons on the pen to like click.
Yeah, but without touching the screen. You got to be close to the screen, but not touching the screen.
Yeah,
and you can like.
So there's like maybe there's some solutions for that. If anybody knows one, that'd be great. Because like if I could just control my whole fucking computer with that thing, I probably would because then I don't have to worry about it. But you also have you have the display issue, which is like I have two monitors. Again, we talk about running Discord on the side. If I want to go hit my Discord stuff, but I'm currently operating my tablet, I would have to switch to a different mode that isn't basically referencing just one screen's worth of real estate for the whole tablet. I'd have to do a mode that basically pulls the whole computer into that same width of the tablet, then click over there. So there's all this like, it's just all this shit, right?
Yeah, like I'm trying to imagine somebody like playing a first-person shooter with a stylus, which would be cool, But the problem is like with a stylus, generally the way it's interpreted as if it's touching the pad, then it's clicking and moving at the same time, right? Whereas with a regular mouse, you can move the cursor separately from clicking, and that's where the disconnect is. So it's
very weird.
Yeah, and like on the keyboard side of things, like for me, there's the perfect keyboard doesn't exist because everybody's trying to solve way too fucking many problems. And we talked about how like I tried that caracorder thing. I've gotten a moon lander, and there's all these different and just insane ways you can like bust keyboards apart and do whatever. For me, there's only one problem that keyboards have, which is that the arrows, the numpad, like that whole cluster of buttons, that whole thing, it's just on the wrong side of the keyboard.
Yeah.
All that shit should just be on the left side, and then you've got the perfect keyboard. Because
and
now
you mean because then you got space for your mouse.
Because then you have space for your mouse.
Yep.
And the typing part can actually be centered in front of your body. Problem solved.
I'm pretty
But
sure
for some reason, nobody's done
like
that.
lefty. I'm pretty sure they do have those.
There
lefty
are
ones.
left
or you
side
can
10
get
kilos,
because like my keyboard is was it called 10 kilos or whatever?
10
where you
kilos,
just chop. Yeah, it's chopped. That's chopped off. So
Yeah,
you can
if you're
technically get.
if you're a keyboard buff, you'll see them as TKL keyboards. It means it's the
Yeah,
10
you can
kilos.
technically get a little like secondary one, which I actually have. No, you mentioned. I forgot. I have
You
a
can put that
little
where the fuck you want.
USB one that's like all the arrows and the numpad and stuff that you just drift onto the left. So you could.
Yeah,
You can actually.
for me, I gotta find a keyboard that's a mechanical keyboard that still has all of my media controls. Yeah, like my volume slider, blah blah blah. That also has all that shit that's currently on the right side moved over to the left. That's
I
kind of
would
my
bet
combination.
you if you go
of things.
dig through Keychron, I would bet you there's something. I bet
I'll see if I can find
Yeah,
it.
the problem for me is I always want it split, and then once you also introduce the requirement for it being split, then your options plummet instantly.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
Yeah. If you don't care about split
I've
keyboards,
tried
I
that,
bet
and it
you
just-
anything because Keychron, I love Keychron, and they have a great selection of keyboards. And somehow, like every month, they're like, "Here's a new keyboard layout that we haven't done yet." Or like they just keep on turning them out.
Okay.
And I also love these things because they're expensive, like all these mechanical keyboards, but they feel expensive. Like they're. I have two. One that I got earlier that's not a split key or a split keyboard, and that fucking thing weighs like 5 pounds. Like it's like a metal chassis, right? Like and like I sit it down on the table, it just like thuds onto the table, you know. And it has,
Old school
it's also
typewriter feel basically.
and it feels and there's like a layer of like some kind of like rubberized something on the inside to kind of like almost like how you have how they have like a microphone. Like bungees, to kind of hold it.
It's like a
it's got like
damper.
that kind of a thing on the inside to dampen it. So like it just feels so, and it's one of the ultimate bummers is that
It's got shock absorbers.
yeah, it feels so good as a keyboard. And then because it wasn't a split, then eventually I was just like, this just hurts my body too much to use, which is I still have it because I love it and I want to be able to use it because it felt so good. It was so satisfying. But the keyboard I do have is also a Keychron. It's the Q11, I think is what it's called, something like that. But it's a split 10 kilos, and I guess it's still trying to solve all these same problems. It's also customizable, right? So, and the software for it is fucking great. I've over the years I've used a variety of mechanical keyboards that are programmable. Often it's a shitty experience where you like have to press a button with a toothpick or whatever, and like but this you just open up a web app. It's like
Oh, nice.
it's just you just go to a website. It's called like can I use via.app or some shit. You just go to a website and then it's like detect my keyboard, and it just shows you a list of your
It just
keyboards.
does.
And then it pulls up the map. You can like go click on the keys. You can reprogram it, and the moment you change something, it's just changed now. There's no other step, and it's real slick. The only annoyance of this keyboard is that it's got 4 layers. So the way that these reprogrammables tend to work is that you have like buttons that you can set up that will like flip the keyboard into new layers, where a layer has like a different mapping of what the keys do. But this one is for like Windows or Mac, and I don't know what Windows and Mac are doing differently when it comes to keyboard shit, but for some fucking reason the first 2 slots are dedicated to Mac and the second 2 are dedicated to Windows, so you actually only have like
2 layers.
2
Or I guess
layers.
3 because you're your original, and then
Yeah, so
The
the
two-
keyboard has 4 layers, but on a given OS you can only use 2 of them, which is I don't know, weird to me. For my purposes, that's fine. I used to try to get really fancy with it and like have all kinds of ideas and macros and like different layers and stuff. I think what the recurring theme that just keeps on happening is that eventually I just end up with basically a regular ass setup, regular ass mouse.
that's what's
regular-ass
happened to me
keyboard.
every time, which is why I just use a regular keyboard. Because I've tried stuff like the Moonlander with layers, and I did a bunch of reprogramming. But then it's like the cognitive load and the trying to build up the muscle memory of like how all those layers work, while also resisting the temptation to constantly fuck with them, because then that undoes the muscle memory. It's like It's like this push-pull
so
of
high.
features
Well,
that just makes it not work
Well,
for
for
me.
me, the other part is I want to have confidence that I can like, it's kind of like my philosophy with my whole computer is that if it were to blow up in a fire or get thrown out the window or something, that doesn't matter because all my data, somewhere safe, right? I kind of have the same philosophy with all my hardware, which is like, if I just need to go grab a different keyboard, I shouldn't have to be like, oh, fuck, now my brain has to like remap how to use a keyboard, right? Like it should just
Yeah, exactly.
be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm trying to depart, as little as possible. So currently the way that I've got my keyboard set up is, so it's 10 keyless and I haven't missed it, honestly. And I also got this one specifically because it's a split keyboard, and then the up, down, left, right arrow keys are like really shoved up into the rest of the board, so that again, I'm trying to minimize all the reaching that I have to do. And then recently, I made it so that my second layer, basically all the second layer does is changes IJKL. So like your right hand is on JKL as in the home row, right? It changes IJKL to arrow keys so that it behaves.
So you could just
So I just toggle that on, and then I can navigate with it, and that way I can stop reaching for the arrow keys, right?
I do something kind of like that, but without the layers. We're just in Clip Studio specifically. I have an override thing where if I hold Alt Shift, then WASD becomes arrow keys for me. For up and down goes through my layers, and then left right goes through the animation timeline frame by frame. So, and then if I'm in spine, it does the same thing. So up and down goes through the tree, and left right.
Yep. And I'm doing it on the right side because that's because my right hand is used to using arrow keys, right? So
Yeah.
I want my right hand to have something arrow key like, but without moving from the home row. It's kind of my strategy for that. Maybe if you play games a lot, you're going to use WSD a lot. So the same idea, right? So
in Sam's case with art, he's just always using the left half of the keyboard.
Yeah, exactly,
His right hand's always on a stylus. So anything with his right hand
basically
is just out,
from G left is what I got.
Yep.
So I don't care about the whole rest of the right side. I don't even want to deal with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so
Even
yeah,
like
just
the
get
enter
that
key,
here.
the enter key being over there, so fucking annoying. I want an enter key on the left. So like I had to I mapped that to my mouse in a different way. Like I mapped that. That's one of the ones that is mapped to my stylus instead of like a right click on top or like a back button on top. It's actually an enter key.
Enter key and tilde should be swapped.
They really should.
Enter key and tilde. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And you could
They're in the
swap
wrong
them.
place. You
Well,
could.
To me, it's also like I think caps. To me, it's like actually caps lock and enter. Because like I don't need
I
caps
love
lock.
caps
at all.
lock.
But yeah, so the same keyboard it's got two dials on it, which I don't use for anything because I don't have a use case for those. But they're satisfying that they exist and they feel good to turn. So if you needed a dial for something, it's a good keyboard for that. But the left side has just an extra column. So the other annoyance I have with all the mechanical keyboards that are coming out these days is they're like, how few keys can we have? So like as soon as you go to like the 10 keyless category, they're like, no more F keys. And it's all about layers now. And I'm like, stop making me memorize shit.
Quit it.
Just put the keys there, So I want
Just chop my keyboard in half and call it a day.
Yeah,
What are you doing?
Cut it in half and get rid of the 10 keys so that I have room for my mouse. Or if they were on the left side, that would also work. I just don't care about the 10 key. After getting used to not having it, I don't care about it. But having a left would also work. But on the left side, it has an extra, just a single column of, 5 buttons, just an extra column. And that are just like, they're labeled like M1 through 5 because they're just like whatever you want them to be, So I have those mapped onto, because on Windows, I use the virtual desktop system really extensively. So I have 4 virtual desktops on Windows. Where like the rightmost one, if you guys conceptually, whatever, the rightmost one is where I have the browser open that has like my email and our work management system and whatever tabs are related to like the studio stuff, right? And then the one to the left of that is like my main workspace, so like whatever I'm currently working on. Left again is like something that I need to reference a lot, but I want to kind of keep out of the way. The final one, the most left of that is when I need to touch the least often, which is basically like my music player, that kind of stuff, right? So that way they're like, stuff is fully tucked away. Like I can just completely ignore these other applications that are open, but I know where they are, or I can get to them quickly, but without having to like alt tab through shit, right? Because like it's just not in the alt tab set. So
is it kind of like, are you saying like you have like a desktop assigned to each of those buttons, so you can just like hit one of those buttons and it just takes you right
Windows
to
sucks at virtual desktop, so it doesn't have like dedicated keys for that. So
okay.
Linux
that would
does,
be pretty slick.
It's really slick, but they do have keys for just moving like left and right conceptually, like two different desktops. So I've mapped those like top 2 on that extra column onto like moving left and right through the space, so I can just
that makes sense.
flip through really quick, which like I've gotten really used to, so I can do it really fast and it's fine. But I miss so much being on Linux and just being like
just hit a button and being
Alt
different
1.
works.
I'm on the first desktop and it's so slick.
Yeah.
But it gets the job done. And then so I have that, and then the middle one, which is like juking straight left from the home row, right, is my Discord toggle. So I can just be like, bloop, and just hit that with my left hand. And then the bottom two, I don't really need. I've like found a good purpose for them yet. They're just like copy and paste because sometimes it's easy to do. It's nice to do that one-handed. So I've got those there, right? One finger with like a single finger, because
I found that
sometimes I'm holding a cat with my left arm, and so I just have to like be able to poke something with my right hand.
This is the context we're talking about, right? You're like, well, sometimes I got to hold a cat with my
yeah,
so it's like, so I need this setup to be different. I think that's what's so funny about it. It's like they have to be custom, not just like
so bespoke. There
is going to be the particulars of the work, right? So if you're doing art, programming, remote, not whatever, but I think
there's big picture commonalities, right? That's the whole thing we're talking about of like, if you're doing art, you're basically trying to organize everything around having constant access ergonomically to a stylus and a pad. If you're programming, you're trying to do everything on a keyboard as much as possible, both sides of the keyboard. And so everything's oriented around that and minimizing the cost of grabbing your mouse when you're.
Yeah. But the details are just going to be weird and your own. So I think it's a journey every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be afraid of using returns from Amazon or wherever you're getting it from.
You gotta play in the space. But I think to me, the key is like focus more on what you can, on like the physical organization of the space and on what you can add to like what the hardware can do extra, right? Rather than how much can you take away and how weird can the hardware get. I think I used to take that approach of like trying to trim it all down and like do
the cognitive load can only go so high for these things.
Yeah, you got to cut that stuff out.
It's just really nice to just have a button that does a thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to like this button does some things sometimes depending on which layer I'm in or which, it's like, no, just enter does what it does. So tab does what it does. You don't need to think about it. Then you're good to go.
Yeah, and the last bit is also for my mouse. So I have the same mouse that Seth has and I think Sam has. But it's got all these buttons on it. But I find only like the frontmost 3 and then like 2 of the ones behind that are easy for me to like.
Your thumb can easily hit.
Yeah, it's where my thumb already is without having to like bend backwards or get uncomfortable. And also, I'm trying to not use my mouse that much because then I have to keep moving my hand back and forth between my mouse and my keyboard. But I do have those set up for stuff that I'm doing really frequently. So for me, it's basically, again, there's a Discord toggle. That's the one that's the most, like where my thumb naturally rests is my Discord toggle. Because just all day, constantly toggling that on and off. And then the other 2 most accessible buttons are for basically programming focus, which is the ability to do what's called go to definition, which means I'm looking at a current variable and I want to figure out where the fuck that thing came from, right? So I want to be able to click it and then that'll shoot me into wherever the definition, like the file that has like that original thing, sticking the cursor like right where that thing is, right? Which is, there's a hotkey for that. It's just like F12 or some shit. I don't know. There's a hotkey for that. But normally what I have to do is I have to like, put the mouse there or get the cursor over there and then like shoot my hand over to F12. Yep. But if I'm already holding onto the mouse, I should just be able to
just click it.
It. So I have that set up to control click because that's what does that, which is then cool because control click has a bunch of other nice things it does in various programs. And so that basically so that's set up to do that. And there's another one that's a similar idea, which is go to references for a thing. So it's like I'm looking at something, I'm like, where am I using this? What else?
I need to probably set that up.
That's fucking great. And that one's like shift F12, which I mean, come on, kill me, Right. So
then take it off and put your hands on 2 different parts of the keyboard.
Crazy. Yeah. And so I find and then I have, because the other thing that happens on a mouse is like the back and forward of the mouse wheel, right? Is back and forward in a browser, but also if you're using something like Code IDE, is back and forward through where your cursor has been, right? And so,
it also works in Discord, by the way.
Yeah, it works in Discord. It works in all kinds of stuff.
You're talking about tilting your mouse wheel.
Yeah, tilting the mouse wheel.
You kind of
left and right.
Or you push it to the left or the right.
Which comically, because we talked about that actually earlier this week for whatever reason this came up. And I didn't realize that I could do that with my mouse.
Yeah, it's one of those like kind of tucked away things that you just have to know, right? Because how would you know, right? And so tilting your mouse wheel left and right for at least a good mouse is going to be a click. It's going to be a kind of click.
It's like a mouse wheel left.
It's a mouse wheel left and mouse wheel right.
Push left.
Yeah, or whatever.
Push right.
And so
click.
So those mean in most programs, backward and forward. And then whatever the program does with that is going to vary, right? But it's like in a browser, that's back and forward through your history, which is to me annoying because I want to go back and forward through the tabs that I've been in. Like that's what I wish that it did. Although not always. So, whatever. It's always.
It's really, you just want it to go back to where you just were.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really
that was.
Like,
was it in a tab or
which it does
page?
work like that. Say like in VS Code, it works like that. In Discord, it works like that. Like in Discord, the common scenario is you'll get like an alert because of a channel. Somebody said something in a channel. You bop into that channel and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to answer that. And then something else comes up and you're like, oh, hold on. And then you click over somewhere else to answer a different question. And then you're like, wait a minute.
Where the fuck?
Where the fuck was that? If you just flick your mouse wheel to the left, then it just takes you right back there. You're good to go.
Yeah. So the cognitive load reduction of backward and forward. Once I because I also didn't really know about those or didn't use them I use them in a browser just to go back and forth through my history, but that was it. I didn't realize that they were useful elsewhere. But the moment I started using those in my code editor, I was like, holy shit.
Game changer.
It's literally the entire reason I wanted to make Stitch for VS Code, which is our extension that allows us to edit GameMaker code.
Yeah, GameMaker doesn't have this.
It's literally, that was the reason I was trying to program something one day because I don't touch GameMaker that often. But I was trying to program something
I would
was
like to die.
Yeah, it was killing me because the cost of finding something and then getting back to where you were. Because of course I'm also looking at CES code, right? So I'm unfamiliar with it. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out.
So you're wanting to backtrack a lot.
I'm wondering, because I'm wondering. So there's a problem in digital art, which any person who's used layers will know, which is it's kind of the same problem, which is like I go over to this layer to do a thing, and I just want to go back to where the fuck I was. Now
the question is, have you ever tried flicking the mouse?
So I'm making.
Because what if it works like that?
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not using my mouse. That's the fucking problem. I got to figure out a different way to do it. But if there's a previous layer. Not relative to the tree. But like previous or
because everybody knows that you can click the mouse wheel in. Yeah, but not too many people realize
know that either, right? But that left and right. And so that's the thing. So that's either in my shifted keyboard layer that has where I could use IJKL for up, down, left, right. I also have U and O as my backward and forward, so that I don't have to go over to the mouse to do all that stuff. So my strategy with my keyboard is to say I accept that I'm not going to be one of those people who those programmers who don't even touch the mouse. I'm not, my goal is not to get to that point. My goal is to at least just have a good ergonomic situation where I'm not reaching for it when it's convenient. Because the thing is if you're hitting a button, you don't need the mouse. If you're trying to point to something really fast, I'm using a fucking mouse. I'm not going to fuck around with hitting hotkeys.
To me, never touching the mouse is like being vegan, right?
Yeah, it's taking it a little too far,
Which is for me, it's I eat vegan as much as possible for a lot of reasons because I think it's a good thing to do for a lot of reasons, right? That doesn't mean I should literally never touch or eat meat.
Right. Well, if you're talking about vegan, you also
because that just makes everything. Yeah, exactly, and that just makes everything so much harder and so much more uncomfortable for everybody, including me. It just makes life suck, right? So it's find that common ground where you can be okay, if I'm trying to, it's minimize something. Don't just outright eliminate it.
Yeah, because again, that's that cost of if you're. Again, I think it's cool when people can do it, and I used to try to do it, but over time, every time I get a new program that I need to deal with, it's well, I can't use the keyboard on it because I don't know how anything works. So I'm back to the mouse again, right? So So for me, the goal is always rather than spend all that mental energy being how do I just cut it out? It's basically
how do I never touch my mouse?
It's just keep identifying the things that I'm going to my mouse for, and then ask could I not do that? And then over time you just kind of pare it down until you're doing less and less, right? But otherwise my situation is set up so I've got the split keyboard and then I have a mouse wrist rest, one under each one instead of a bar wrist rest. So that way I can position them relative to those two halves, and then I have a enormous mouse pad. It's 8 inches wide by probably 14 inches deep. And it's
we got a mouse pad for.
It's about an inch tall. And so and I have that huge one because it's got a bend kind of in the middle of it so that my wrist can kind of flop over it. So my wrist is comfortable, right? And then it's really high so that when I'm moving to the right from my keyboard, I'm not falling onto the mouse. And when I'm moving back from the mouse, I'm not bumping into the keys of my keyboard, right? So it's
in a way you could say it kind of elevates your mouse experience,
Yeah. And so, because I've found that by
level.
doing that, I don't have to worry very much about how tall my keyboard is, because I can just make my mouse pad and my wrist rest higher, right? So that
I've tried using those mouse wrist rests, and they fuck my wrist up. So I can't.
Yeah, it's never worked for me.
Something about the pressure on the tendons or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's all about positioning and like the softness of the wrist rest and all that kind of stuff. Because I've had trouble in the past, but with the current setup I've managed right now, I basically have like no pains of various sorts while I'm doing stuff. But
It's good.
It's taken a long time.
Suffice to say,
So we've summarized
dug
all of
into
this
it,
stuff.
okay?
Yeah, but we've summarized all this stuff. Also note that for each one of us, we've had separate journeys to get where we are. This is not the end either. But to get where we are for each of us has taken literal years of experimenting.
Of just
trying
tinkering
stuff,
with stuff.
Whatever. And
It
that's
is
the main thing,
remarkable,
you gotta try
though,
stuff.
how, kind of to your point, how often we see something like with the Caracorder or something that's like such a huge deviation from the norm. And you're like, finally, somebody's like really rethinking this problem from the ground up, you know?
Yep.
And then you try it and you're like, actually, this sucks. And then you end up kind of going back to something that was like 98% where you started with just like a teeny little
tweak.
little tweak, you know, because there's something, like we're saying, there's something to be said for flexibility and muscle memory. Being able to just like jump onto a keyboard in a different place on a different computer and just use it without being like, but it's not my moon lander. I don't know what my layers. I can't fucking do anything, you know.
For me, a big question I always have is how horrible do I feel when I feel like I need to use my laptop for something? And the more like intense I get about how much I vary from defaults, then because even right now, like I got a third monitor a couple days ago, and to solve just make my life easier now. So I'm sitting here in my normal workstation with 3 monitors, a dope split keyboard that's like perfect ergonomic layout for everything, right? And when I go use my laptop, it's tiny. It's a single keyboard. It's really uncomfortable. It doesn't even have a mouse, just a shitty trackpad.
Get the little trackpad.
And like all the stuff that I'm so used to being able to take advantage of is gone, right? Except I still got virtual desktops at least, but otherwise
It's kind of like it's like getting a bidet, you know, where like once you got it, then whenever you're out and about, you're like, man, I don't want to take a shit anywhere because I know they're not going to have a bidet.
So like you got to be careful that ratcheting fidelity of like how far do I want to take it, knowing that I can't always
get too comfortable.
How nice should my toilet be at home? Like it should be nice. But like, you know, if you get one of those like $5,000 Japanese toilets that also like gives you a massage,
now you're gonna live
does
on
your
your toilet,
taxes,
and that's too far.
Then you're just like, you'll never leave the bathroom, and now you know you're not even living life anymore.
Yep.
You know, you're comfortable, but at what cost?
At
what
what
I mean?
cost?
So you got to find that middle ground. All right, well, that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta for putting the podcast together, and thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate to support the podcast, and links to the archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, Google Play, or the App Store and pick up a copy of Crashlands 2 or just, you know, any of our games. And if you've already got them, give them a positive review. It helps us out a lot and helps our games get more exposure. We'd appreciate it. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.